Hey guys, it's me, Adam, here for another one of our set reviews for Magic the Gathering. This is Innistrad Midnight Hunt Part 2, Electric Boogaloo, as they always say. But this is the black and the blue cards. There's a fair few quite spicy cards in this bit, and I hope you all are liking this different format that I'm doing, so I hope it's working out. And I hope we can have a look at some of these great spicy cards, which we'll start doing right now. By the way, we make lots of great content here on the channel. And if you haven't already, please think about subscribing to the channel. It really helps out the channel grow and make more great content for you. And as our analytics show, 95.6% of people aren't subscribed to the channel. So if you aren't subscribed to the channel, do please think about subscribing to the channel. Alright, so looking at black cards to start with. First card, Tainted Emissary. This card's insane. I think the white one was good. I think the red one was okay, but I think this one is insane. I think this one is so good. It's very good. 2 mana to start out with for a 2/3 with Death Touch, 1 of the black zombie. When it enters, you pay the pseudo kicker of 2 and a black. It gets that many +1/+1 counters equal to the number of times you essentially kicked it, and then you get twice that many 2/2 zombies. So that's really good. Like for what, 5 mana or whatever it is, I think. Yeah, for 5 you're getting a 3/4 with 2/2 bodies. It's kind of like a mini Grave Titan or whatnot. It's not when it attacks, it is only when it enters or whatnot, but still, this is really quite good. It does a lot of really great stuff in certain decks, especially when you've got Recursion straight in black. There's so many zombie decks that are out there. This is so relevant for so many of those decks. It's a very powerful option that you can do so much with. You can get a lot of power. Now, whether you're using that to attack, or whether you're using it to sack, or whether you're using it for other fodder, reasons and whatnot, or blockers, or whatever you're going to do with them, these things can be still so relevant. And again, you can just recur this thing over and over again and get heaps and heaps of zombies and do all kinds of shenanigans with it, with some of your other synergies and effects that are in your decks. So this is an amazing card, and I expect almost every black deck will probably use it that has any, token strategy, aristocrat strategy, graveyard strategy, any of that. That's probably where I see it. Next, it's a weird enchantment, the Meat Hook Massacre. So you pay X and double black. It enters the battlefield, and each creature gets -X until end of turn. Whenever a creature we control dies, each opponent loses 1 life. When a creature an opponent control dies, we gain 1 life. So it's kind of like a Massacre Worm. Actually, it's more like it's like a Black Sun Zenith, but it's also on this enchantment that basically is like a Blood Artist effect. And this enchantment will stay on the battlefield after you've cast it, so you can just cast this for X is 0, and you've still got a Bastion of Remembrance essentially for 2, except you don't get the 1/1 or whatever, but that's still fairly irrelevant for the most part. It's nice value or whatever to get that 1/1, but whatever. You're still getting essentially this life-draining effect whenever your creatures die, or life gain when your opponent's stuff dies. And you're in black, you've got so many ways to kill your opponent's stuff with all of these, Dictate of Erebos style effects and shielded things like this. So it's a really powerful card that I think can see a lot of play in a lot of decks. So I would definitely pick it up for a deck if you're, thinking, because this can use multiple purposes. That's the thing about it. That's why it's so good. It's just like it does so many things, and it's very efficient and can do whatever you want. X can be anything you need, so that's really good. Yeah, it's not as good as maybe Toxic Deluge, but at least the enchantment does stay around, so that it can still be useful throughout the rest of the game. Next is Champion of the Parish. This one, of course, it's a reference to Champion of the Parish. So now he's a zombie, 1 mana, 1/1. Whenever another zombie enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on him. So strictly probably just zombie tribal style decks, but there's quite a lot of those out there. And it's really quite good. Again, you can find the same sort of strategies in Sacrifice and whatnot. It's not super important that this thing gets big, but it's nice. You can do some interesting things with the Oozolith or the Ozlith, whatever you want to call it. So I can see this going in several decks as well that, mostly contain zombies. Lord of the Forsaken is an insane magic card. It's a 6 mana, 4 and double black, 6/6 demon, flying a trample. Pay 1 black, sacrifice another target creature, and target player mills 3 cards. Then you can pay 1 life to add a colorless mana, spend this mana only to cast spells from your graveyard. That's ridiculous because it has essentially channels effect on this card, which means you can pay you pay life to make mana, which is insane. Yes, it's only for things in your graveyard and it's only colorless mana, but still, that's insane. It's a very powerful effect, and I can see lots of decks wanting this card. Yeah, sure, dedicated demons decks might not want it, but it's still a really quite good demon. It's on curve, flying, trampling threat. It can still do stuff, and you can, if you have some sort of sacrifice sub theme, or you have some things in your graveyard sometimes that you can recur, it can be quite useful. But overall, I think mostly you want it in real heavy graveyard strategy and synergy decks. And you want it in decks where you can recur more than one thing per turn very easily. So, and you also want to be able to generate the other colors of mana fairly easily without having to worry about the fact that you can only make colorless with this thing. But once you get over those very insignificant hurdles, it's just like a slam dunk in just about every black deck that, you're doing reanimatory stuff. Of course, I've got to talk about Infernal Grasp. I know a lot of people have been talking about Infernal Grasp, but Infernal Grasp is really good. This is the best Doomblade that they've printed in forever, literally forever. 2 mana, instant, destroy target creature, and you lose 2 life. That is it. There's no restrictions. You lose 2 life. That is an insignificant amount of life to lose to kill any creature on the battlefield. Yes, you're gonna still have problems with enchantments and artifacts in this color, but that's not what this color is meant to do. So the fact that this is super efficient and gets rid of anything, I can see this seeing a lot of play in a lot of decks. Now, there are some cards that are as good or maybe better than it, or you can, make the argument, but this is still really good. And black doesn't have a Swords to Plowshares. It just doesn't. This is probably the closest we're gonna get for a long time. And this is just another card that I think a lot of people should look at putting into text if you want this style effect, and you probably want this style effect. But with that, I think that's probably pretty much it, guys. There's a few interesting cards here that they're trying to sort of reprint some other cards and whatnot. Deadhound is another version of Sir Conrad, sort of. but much more watered down. There's certainly other cards here that, you know, mostly limited fodder. There's certainly some wolves and humans and werewolves, but they're just in the wrong colours and whatnot. And we just don't know where some of these other cards can really fit, so we're going to move on to blue. Alright, so in blue, we've got Puppet Stitcher, rather. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, you create a 2/2 black zombie creature with Decayed. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 3 or more creature tokens, you may transform him. When he transforms, creature tokens you control lose all abilities and base power 33. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may transform it. So, the Decayed Zombies, I know a lot of people were saying, well, what are we going to do with these Decayed Zombies? They don't really last, they don't really do much, they can't get in there. Like, if you make enough, you can, like, easily. And again, like, you can do some sacrifice stuff. I know blue really isn't, like, that much into sacrificey stuff, but again, you can do some of that stuff. Like, you can find ways to, you know, polymorph them or whatnot, things like that. Or you can find, you know, ways to give them flying or things like that. Or you can just, like, throw them in there because they're throwaway tokens anyway. So you can still find other things to do with them, but just like the fact that this gives you some 2/2 bodies, and we see like Tauran style cards become really good, and the fact that you can flip this over and then those creatures will lose Decayed essentially and become 3/3s, so that's really good as well. You know, like once you don't need to get any more tokens, you can, you know, start getting in there with your tokens and whatnot, and you make them bigger and whatnot. But then when you need to make tokens, you might want to flip it back and do things like that. So there's like heaps of flexibility here, and I think this will see a lot of play in a lot of Spellslinger decks. Spectral Adversary. I think I'm going to talk about almost every one of these adversaries. Most of them pretty darn good. Flash Flying, 2/1 for 2. It has the same, you know, ability to pseudo kicker it. You pay 1 and a blue, gets that many counters, and when it enters, you then up to that many target artifacts and or creatures phase out. So, however many times you can kick this, you can phase a whole bunch of things out. Ridiculous, like, you know, like, and then you have this 2/1 that gets a whole bunch of counters, you know, and it's flash, and then you can attack with it. You just phase out all your opponent's stuff, and then you go to your turn before the last end step, and then you just like can swing in there and probably kill people, you know. Like, there's lots of things, like, again, like you could just bounce somebody's attacker or phase out somebody's attacker who's attacking you, or your planeswalker, or whatever. Someone has their Blightsteel Colossus, they're going to kill you with Blightsteel. I'll phase it out, see you, bye. You know, like, again, there's lots of little things like that you can do. So, I definitely think that this can see play in a lot of decks. I don't know really where it sort of fits, but just like, it's sort of a removal spell. It's like a bad removal spell to a degree, or it can be a board wipe as well, but it's also a bad board wipe, but it's still very good and very powerful and can do lots of things, so I think it can see play. Maybe in Spirit Tribal you'll see it a bit more, because it is Spirit, so it has more homes there, but there's no real good Spirit Tribal commander. Maybe we'll get one of these days, maybe in the next Innistrad set, so, and that's coming pretty soon. I think Memory Deluge is pretty good. 4 mana, instant. You look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the amount of mana spent to cast them. You put 2 of them in your hand, the rest on the bottom of your library in any order, or in a random order rather. So you scry 4, you put 2 of them into your hand, then you can flash it back for 7, you know, and look at the top 7, put 2 into your hand. So that's pretty good, you know, like that, getting those cards, drawing those cards, doing things and whatnot with this, especially since it has flashback. and we know how good dig through time is, like, and whatnot. So it can be really good, especially since the instant. I wouldn't really talk about it as sorcery. Since instant, I think it's pretty good. It isn't drawing cards, so there are some decks that would not like that, but a lot of decks just don't care. They just need more cards in hand, so it wouldn't really matter to them. Partition Geist, strictly a Spirit Tribal card. 3 mana, 2/2 flyer. Spirit Knight, other spirits you control get +1/+1. Spell you cast from graveyard, cost 1 less to cast. Like, I don't know how many spirits do much from the graveyard, but there are some. But, you know, you really want this to be in Spirit Tribal for the most part. Triskaidekaphile is kind of an interesting alternate win condition. I don't know if it's any better than any of the other alternate win conditions that are out there, but it's interesting. 2 mana, 1/3. Human Wizard, you have no maximum hand status. Beginning of your upkeep, if you have exactly 13 cards in your hand, you win the game. You pay 4 mana to draw a card. I think the draw a card effect is a little bit overcosted, but you've got things that you can reduce its ability with. But if you can get that 13 cards, it is another win condition, which is, you know, okay, whatever. It's there to me, but, you know, I'm sure a lot of people want to build around this because a lot of people love all of these, you know, random, you win the game if you do this cards or whatnot. Whereas I'm just like, whatever. You'll probably not get it off that many times. It's funny sometimes when you do, but yeah, otherwise. I think Ominous Roost can be good in like decks like Muldrotha, but that's probably about it there with that. Like, there's some decks that use flashback and other effects. It's a 3 mana enchantment, 2 and a blue. When it enters the battlefield or whenever you cast a spell from your graveyard, you create a 1/1 bird creature token with flying, and this creature can only block creatures with flying. So that's okay. I think it can go in some decks if you're heavy on casting spells from your graveyard and things like that. And there are some decks that would do that. So I think it's okay. Consider, we've got to quickly talk about Consider because it's one of the bigger cards from the set. 1 mana, instant. You surveil 1 essentially. You look at the top card, you may put that card into your graveyard, then you draw a card. This is great for graveyard decks that are in these colours because it's better than scrying. You want your cards sometimes to be in the graveyard, and if you happen to find it off the top, you know, like the card or one of the cards you're looking for to put in your graveyard, you just put it there. But otherwise, you can still get to, you know, put something into the graveyard. Maybe you don't really want it, and then you get to draw one. So that might be something, you know, digs you somewhat deeper into the cards that you do need. But other than that, I do think that's pretty much it for the blue cards here as well. So we'll be moving on soon to getting up our green and land cards soon here for the set. So hope you have enjoyed this one. And let me know what you think so far. Write your thoughts down there in the comments below. Hey, you've just finished watching one of our videos. A bunch of other videos are popping up on your screen now for you to check out, so why not check them out? I hope you have enjoyed this video here today.